It is a time of legend. Mighty heroes battle for the right to rule the galaxy. The vast armies of the Emperor of Earth have conquered the galaxy in a great crusade. The myriad alien races have been smashed by the Emperor's elite warriors and wiped from the face of history. The dawn of a new age of supremacy for humanity beckons. Gleaming citadels of marble and gold celebrate the many victories of the Emperor. Triumphs are raised on 1,000,000 worlds to record the epic deeds of his most powerful and deadly warriors. First and foremost, amongst these are the Primarchs, superheroic beings who have led the Emperor's armies of Space Marines into victory after victory. They are unstoppable, magnificent, the pinnacle of the Emperor's genetic experimentation. The Space Marines are the mightiest human warriors the galaxy has ever known, each capable of besting 100 normal men or more in combat. Organized into vast armies of tens of thousands called legions, the Space Marines and their Primarch leaders conquer the galaxy in the name of the Emperor. Chief amongst the Primarchs is Horus, called the Glorious, the brightest star, favorite of the Emperor, and like a son unto him. He is the War Master, the commander-in-chief of the Emperor's military might, subjugator of 1,000,000 worlds, and conqueror of the galaxy. He is a warrior without peer, a diplomat supreme. Horus is a star ascendant. But how much further can a star rise before it falls? Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. I am diving back into the Warhammer universe. I did that in my last book review video, and it kind of stirred up in me how much I absolutely adore this series of novels. And calling it a series is not really doing it justice. The Warhammer universe created by Games Workshop and the Black Library is mind-bogglingly expansive. And I find it even more fascinating because so many authors write the books. My favorite author in the Black Library universe is Dan Abnett. He's the one who wrote Eisenhorn, the first book out of the Warhammer world that I reviewed. And he also wrote the first book in what we're going to start today, the Horus Heresy series, which is Horus Rising. The Horus Heresy is the longest running consistent series within the Warhammer universe produced by the Black Library. The first novel, Horus Rising, came out back in 2006. Was that 15 years ago? Oh my God. Well, that's the moment I got old right there. And it's been an incredible journey. I think there was a period where a lot of the novels felt a little repetitious because it was only supposed to be a 3-book series initially, telling the story of how Horus, the greatest son of the Emperor, fell to chaos and was corrupted. Because within the Warhammer tabletop game, you have the opportunity to play as legions of the Emperor. You can play as a Xenos species. You can play as Chaos, but you can also play as Chaos Space Marines, which are the legions that Horus managed to turn from loyalty to the Emperor to the gods of Chaos. And there were a couple of them who had already turned before the heresy began, but we'll get to that later. What's so fascinating about this universe is how intricately detailed it is. To have so many authors contributing to the same world, and yet the stories remain cohesive, coherent, and clear is quite impressive to me. It doesn't matter which of these novels you pick up, you are in the world of 40,000 years in the future. It is a world of chaos and war and subjugation and ultimate worship of the Emperor of mankind. And no matter how you're introduced into the Warhammer universe, you can pick it up from anywhere. And fall in love with the universes and the stories that are told. So it's interesting that the series was so popular that those 3 books have turned into dozens of books, of audio dramas. They've expanded the tabletop world because of it, because it was that popular. But I will admit, there came a point where I got a little tired of reading the novels in series, because some of them felt like they were just rehashing the same story points over and over, and we weren't learning anything new about that part of the Warhammer history and universe. And I think in recent years, they've done a really good job of reviving by telling stories from perspectives other than just the Space Marines. And those happen to be some of my favorites in recent memory. There are so many in this series, and it's going to take me forever to get to them all, because I don't just want to get to the books. There are certain characters within the series that stand out, that I love, or who are just so shocking and amazing that you have to think about them and you have to talk about them. So I'm going to spend a long time in Warhammer. You know, you see all these books behind me? I've read them all. I have so many books to review, but got to start somewhere. And Eisenhorn just got me all happy about Warhammer. So let's talk more about it. Now, this is my opinion. Don't at me in the comments, or at me. I don't care. I don't think Horus Rising is really about Horus, even though he's the title character and his name is on the book. To me, when I read this novel, it really is a story of his closest companions and advisors, and how they watched their leader fall to chaos, and having to make a choice of, were they loyal to the Imperium of Man and the Emperor, or were they loyal to Horus? We start Horus Rising, as appropriate in Warhammer, in war. There's a battle going on. The purpose of the Primarchs and their Space Marine legions is to bring worlds in the galaxy, the known galaxy, under the compliance of the Imperium of Man, headed by the Emperor of Mankind. And let's be real, he's a self-appointed emperor, but he's legit the most powerful human in the known galaxy. So humans just kind of go, oh, he could kill us all. Yeah, we'll comply. It's cool. Initially, when the Emperor set out to conquer the known universe and take back the human races and their planets and rid the galaxy of Xenos and chaos beings, he was on his own, so to speak. You know, he had imperial armies, he had soldiers at his commands, but none of them could quite match the strength and abilities of the Emperor. So he was a bit of a geneticist, and he took his own DNA and created 20 sons. Sons in quotations. These sons were given portions of the Emperor's DNA, and they are basically super beings, almost as powerful as the Emperor, because, you know, you can't have 20 kids running around who could kill you. That's dumb. But they're almost as powerful as the Emperor. But he creates these sons as gene fathers to their legions. These 20 beings are amazing diplomats. They are politicians without equal. They can make war as a hobby. They are great tacticians. They are great in battle. They're just great in every way. They are convincing. They sway people to their opinion. They are just brutes of humanity. No specimens have ever been seen like them. So when they are put in charge of their legions that are then born from their own gene seeds, those legions at times could become, I just shook my camera. Those legions at times could become more loyal to their Primarch that was their gene father than they would be the Imperium of Mankind that they were charged with protecting. When we first encounter our main characters in Horus Rising, the Legion of Luna Wolves, which is Horus's legion, are waging war on a planet called 6319. That's the name of it. You got a trillion planets out there. They're not all going to get cool names. Some of you are numbers. You are planet 144, whatever, you know, but they are on planet 6319, and Horus has his strongest leaders, of course, on the planet making that war. And in that conflict, he loses one of his warriors that also holds a place of confidence with him to the battle. He has, I guess you would call it a cabinet, a kind of unofficial cabinet called the Mournival, who are 4 of his legion's warriors in highest ranking, who Horus would look to for advice and counsel when he needed it. So that's kind of a big deal. This guy is basically a prince in the world of the Imperium of Man. His father, not in the truest sense, but the guy who made him, runs the universe. And this is his son, and he's asking for your input and advice. That can be a very intimidating position, I would imagine, because we've seen what happens with certain world leaders, and when they get into power, giving them advice could get your head cut off. Well, Horus loses one of his Mournival leaders, and a member of the Mournival actually promotes are central to me, who the central character is, Garviel Loken, as the next member. Because Garviel is unlike a lot of the Space Marines. He still retains aspects of his humanity. So let's pause here and talk about why that's important. The process of becoming a Space Marine is pretty terrifying. Young boys, and they're all boys, sorry, girls, there are no female Space Marines. Now, there are female legions of things out there, but the Space Marines are all men. And there are some of the things that the women can do that are like way more terrifying than anything the men do. Sisters of Silence, I'm looking at you. But the process of becoming a Marine, Legionis Astartes, it was, can I say, it was hell. Youngsters, when I say youngsters, I mean like wee ones, little kids, were taken from the home world of the Primarchs. We talked about what that whole home world thing was in the last video, but they were taken from the home worlds, typically the home worlds of the Primarchs, and put through physical and scientific tests to determine their worthiness and just their physical ability to be in the Legionis Astartes, because it not only required that you be a top physical specimen, but you had to have absolute loyalty, of course, put into you to the Emperor of Mankind. And then on top of that, the gene seed of that legion would be put into your body, which was going to transform you into a different type of creature. Not as awesome as a Primarch, but still pretty darn awesome. You went from being, you know, an average 5-foot tall dude to being like 14 feet tall, all the muscles, several hearts, more lungs and everything. Like, it was going to completely change who you were. Which I kind of wonder why they're so beholden to protecting humanity when they basically make you not human in this process. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. So the process of becoming a Space Marine changes the essence of who you are. It changes you so much, the trials you're put through, combat training, political training, all of that. It changes you so much that most, if not all of the Space Marines at a certain point forget their human life. They forget that connection to humanity because they are Legionis Astartes. I am a Luna Wolf. I am a Blood Angel. You know, I'm whatever legion I belong to. I'm a Salamander. They lose their identity as an individual and they become beholden to the legion and in turn beholden to the Emperor. And that is who they are. But then enters Garviel Loken, who still retains humanity. This is a warrior of the Legionis Astartes, who, when he sees injustice happening, even if it's in the name of the Emperor and for the greater good, he's got the C.O. Jones to question it. He has within himself a moral compass that honestly a lot of Astartes don't have, because their entire purpose is to make war. They exist to exterminate. They exist to take over worlds. They don't care about people. They don't care about Xenos. They don't care about the billions of lives they take as long as they take a world in the name of the Emperor. And Loken is different. He encounters battles where he sees his Primarch make decisions, and at times internally he questions them. Why did my Primarch make this choice? Why has the Emperor of Mankind decided to take this path? We were instructed that our purpose as Astartes was to bring together the Imperium of Man, and it seems like we are doing things to break the Imperium apart. The Imperium is nothing without the lives of its citizens. So how can we casually destroy those lives if they simply do not fit within our purpose? Basically, Loken is pure. He is as pure as it gets for a Legiones Astartes. And we really follow his perspective for the majority of Horus Rising, our first novel in the Horus Heresy series. Because what we are seeing is through the eyes of someone close to Horus, what it looked like from the outside to see your leader fall. Because one thing we don't get, and I'm rereading some of the books to make sure I'm on track with this, but if memory serves me correctly, one thing we don't get during a lot of the novelization are Horus's internal thoughts. We see the results of what he does. We see his interactions with his legion. We see his interaction with his brother Primarchs, but we don't know what Horus is thinking. We don't know what Horus is feeling. Typically, the Primarchs would have to outwardly express in the worlds of the books, because a lot of the books, even though the action is directed at the Primarchs, they don't typically come from their perspective. So you're wondering, like, oh, how does he feel about this? And we learn what they feel by what they do, not by them actually telling us their feelings. And Loken is so perceptive that he perceives in his Primarch that there might be a gash in the wall that could let something in. And oh, something does get in, but that's later. So they go through the process of making war. A member of the Mournenval is killed, and Loken is installed as that new member. It is significant to have someone with humanity to have the ear of a Primarch. But even though you have the Primarch's ear, that doesn't mean you can have a loose tongue with the Primarch. I mean, they're basically a demigod. Don't make them mad. They could backhand you across the room and break your neck. You don't want to go ticking these giants off, even if you are a giant yourself. So that means he has more access to Horus and the other Primarchs, and of course the other members of the Mournenval. And he learns things that he didn't know before. And that starts changing a lot of his perspective. So after 6319 is wrapped up, of course, you are a war-making group. You move on to go make another war. The next planet where they are called is the planet called, and I didn't make this up, it's in the book, the planet's called Murder. Murder. A planet called Murder. The Legiones of Horus go to Murder to put down a Xenos species. It's just some weird bug-like creature, and they're just on the planet to kill them all, basically. And they are joined by some of the Emperor's children in this endeavor. The Emperor's Children is another legion. It's run by the Primarch Fulgrim. And we're going to talk about Fulgrim one day. He is one of the most interesting characters in the entire Warhammer 40k universe. I should not find him so fascinating, but I do. And we're going to talk about Fulgrim one day, but not today. We are talking about Horus and Loken today. But a few members of another legion join in this crusade because it's pretty tough. This alien species seems to be pretty resilient, and you know they are just they're giving them trouble. As they are engaged in this battle, They've got Imperial Army down there, which they're humans. They're just humans. They're not super in any way. They're just people. They've got their legions down there. So you've got Emperor's children fighting. You have the Lunar Wolves fighting. Some things happen on this planet that warrant explanation. When the Emperor retreats to Terra and leaves Horus in charge of the legions and making his war across the galaxy, it is decided that it needs to be remembered for future generations. So a group of individuals called Remembrancers are sent with the legions. Their job is to capture through pictures, poetry, music, whatever artistic talent they possess, the great feats done by the Astartes. So they want to accompany the Astartes on the field of battle. Like, they want to be in the action and see what's going on so they can better express the awesomeness that is the Astartes. Now, put yourself in the position of a space marine. Do you want this sickly little human tagging along when you're trying to blow things up? They're going to get in the way. But whatever, eventually the legions are just like, whatever, y'all are here. Just come on, just don't do things we didn't tell you to do. Well, humans gonna human, and they do things they were told not to do. On the battlefield in Murder, some of these remembrancers run off because they want to get more deep into the action. Well, they basically run across a demon who has possessed a space marine. And the one who comes to their rescue, lucky for them, is Garviel Loken. Now, at this point in the development of humanity, with the Emperor back on Earth, Terra, at this point, most humans don't know about demons. They don't know about chaos. They don't know about the warp. They just believe in the Emperor and science, and that's all there is to the world. Well, all of their preconceived notions and beliefs are challenged on this day because they see a possessed chaos space marine. And it means to kill them all. The space marine who is possessed by a demon is possessed by a demon of Nurgle. And you know that because he begins to swell, bloat, get gross, and decay. Nurgle is the chaos god of death, decay, and disease. He's my least favorite to look at, talk about, or think about. Like, not into it. But that's what happens here. And Garviel sees this twisted, disgusting creature that used to be one of his battle brothers turning into this monster. And, well, it's a monster now, not a space marine, so he's got to kill it. And he does. But this calls into question everything he's been told up until this point, because remember, when you become a space marine, they kidnap you from your family and brainwash you and turn you into something else. But he still has within him that human nature to question what he has seen and experienced when it doesn't quite feel right. And after this battle where he's had to put down one of his battle brothers, Horus notices that it's affected him. He's like, hey dude, what's going on with you? He didn't say it like that, but this is my interpretation. What's going on with you? And Logan's like, man, I've seen some things. I know about them things. Did you know about these things? And Horus is basically like, well, there's things out there that you're just better off not knowing about, but yeah, I knew about the things. Emperor knows about the things. The reason the Emperor went back to Earth was he wanted to figure out how to control the things, because those things could basically wipe out humanity if we don't get a wrangle on it. My Southerner just came out. And Logan's like, okay, so there's just creatures out there who can possess us and use powers we've never seen. And just basically make our lives awful, and y'all just didn't think that was important to tell anyone. This is why I love these books, because it becomes a reflection of the real world. Think about it. How many things do our governments do and know about that we think we want to know? We don't want to know. You don't want to know. You think you want to know. You don't want to know. How often do we see leaders in front of us watch their descent into madness and chaos? as greed and power overtake them and the good of the people is no longer their concern. How often have we seen people lose their loyalty to their country and their blood in favor of an individual who is trying to upset what that country is? These books can hit close to home. With all the things happening in the world, they feel like a timely reread because it's that window into why humans act the way they act from a different perspective. Yeah, it's military science fiction, but good fiction is rooted in reality somewhere. There has to be a grounding for people to transport themselves into the stories and be willing to suspend their disbelief for the duration of the story. And that's what happens in Horus Rising. Loken learns of things that are going on, that exist, that no one knew up until that point. He knew that psychers existed, his psychics existed, but he thought that, there were only very certain people who could control psychic powers, like the Emperor and like 10 other folks. It wasn't a widely known power, and he just watched somebody cyclically rip people apart because because they were, possessed by a chaos god. And Horus basically tells Loken, you ain't seen nothing. Like, look over there. You want to stay in my morning ball? You want to stay in my crew? Look over there. Like, you saw nothing. Isn't that what happens? You want to stay in power? You want to keep your position? Yeah, I brought you here to give me advice, but what I really meant was say yes to my ideas. I didn't mean to actually get your advice. And when you see something, don't say nothing, because there'll be problems if you say something. Well, understandably, Loken is shooketh at this point. He is shook. He's like, oh, okay, well, what else is going on in the legions that I don't know about? Well, he finds out. During the war on murder, they encounter a human species called the Interrex. And I hope I'm saying that right. There's so many words in this series. It's like, y'all made this word up. This isn't a word. And the Interrex come to murder because they get an alarm that someone's on their planet doing things. Well, it turns out murder is a world where they were keeping those alien creatures trapped because they're chaos creatures, and they put them there to be left alone. Nobody come to the planet. And they basically look at the Space Marines like, you idiots. All you had to do was keep passing by, but you just have to do things. You just got to blow stuff up. You can't help yourselves. Well, sucks for them, because since they're a human species, the Emperor and his legions assume, well, you're going to be in our little gang now because you're human-ish, we're human-ish, and we're just all going to be human-ish together. So, hey, bow down to the Emperor. And they're like, no. Why? We don't know you people. But that's not how the Imperium of Man works. If they find you and you happen to be human enough, they will bring you into compliance. And compliance means a lot of things. Mostly it means we will destroy your planet if you just don't immediately bow down. That's what compliance means. And sometimes planets look at the Astartes and go, oh, well, they're terrible. Yeah, we agree. We're in the Imperium of Man now. We will send you all the tribute that you need. And then there are others who say, no, we're not doing this. And they get destroyed. Well, the Interrex, not wanting to tick off these giant monstrosity demigods who just like shooting things, they invite them back to their home world to have a conference. And Horus, while he's still Horus, realizes, may have done something wrong here. I apologize. Let's all be cool. Yeah, let's go do the diplomacy thing on your planet. They go back to the Interrex planet, and they are accompanied by a couple of other Legion representatives. A couple of members of the Emperor's Children come, but unbeknownst to them, there's also a member of the Word Bearers Legion on the planet. That's going to become way important in the next book, but I'm not going to dive into it right now. The Interrex go into further explanation during this diplomatic process of what that planet of murder was and why it should have been left alone. And basically that they are well aware of chaos because they've been interacting with some other alien species who are well aware of chaos. Mainly the Eldar, which are, you can think of them as the elves in this universe, but they're not human, so they must die as far as the Imperium of Man is concerned. But they've had a lot of interaction with the Eldar, and they've learned some things, and they know where not to stick their noses, what not to bother. And they're pretty ticked off that the Space Marines came to that planet and ticked off that portion of the Chaos realm. And while they're trying to make peace with Horus, and Garviel Loken is part of the group that's, on this diplomatic mission, listening to all the conversation, well, chaos breaks out, literal chaos. Someone, presumably in the Space Marines company, steals an alien sword, a Xenos sword. They call it an artifact, but it's some kind of sword from the vaults on the Interrex planet. And the Interrex immediately call all the Space Marines, just suspicious. You are devious. You just came here to steal stuff from us. We told y'all not to mess with the stuff, and you're out here stealing it. Swords drawn, shots fired. We're doing this. And Horus didn't want to fight the Interrex, but now he's forced to because somebody out there did a thing and stole something they shouldn't have. And Loken is watching all of this ensue. And as they prepare to make war on these people that 5 minutes ago they were being diplomats with, Loken questions it. He's like, why are we doing this? There are other ways to get this done besides us going to war with people who didn't intend to make war. In fact, we started this problem. Had we just passed by that planet of alien species, none of this would be happening. Had we not gone where we had no business being, we wouldn't be here. And that's kind of the theme of the rest of the books. The Emperor has this grand vision of conquering the galaxy and what he wants humanity to be. And he created these all-powerful demigod sons in his image to then create sons in their image to craft the universe he wants. But that requires all of them to stick their noses where they don't belong, to go to planets where they have no business and make war, to take people who might be living perfectly good lives and drag them into the Imperium of Man. And it eventually gets to a point where the Primarchs, who are now missing their Gene Father, who has disappeared back to Earth doing things that they don't know about, where they start to question, why are we doing this? If Loken, who is not a demigod, can question it, well, then of course the Primarchs are questioning it. And Horus, being War Master, the top of the pile of Primarchs, one would assume he questions nothing. But to not have immediately taken this race of humanoids and subjugated them to the Emperor, that's already him turning from the vision of the Emperor a little bit, because that's their entire purpose. Either they comply or you kill them. Those are the only options. And Horus tried diplomacy. It failed miserably. So already there's a door in his heart that is cracking open where something can get in. And Garviel Loken is the most perceptive of his Mournenval. And as he interacts with Horus, he has moments where he interacts with another Primarch. He sees the crack appearing, and he sees it widening through the battles they go through, the Xenos species they encounter, the demons of chaos he's now understanding exist. He sees things he never expected to even ask a question to know exist. His whole world is turned upside down. He never before questioned his emperor. He never questioned his Primarch or his fellow battle brothers. But now he's questioning everything about his existence and what it means to be Legionis Astartes. Is he loyal to Horus? Is he loyal to the Emperor? Is he loyal to humanity? Loken is one of my favorite characters because he has a significant arc. You see him from this blindly loyal space marine who happens to have a touch of humanity in him, go from being blindly loyal to someone who knows some things. And because he knows some things, he has to do something with that information. And in the next couple of books, we see what he does with that information as it relates to his Primarch, the Legion, and the Empire. Because once they finish destroying the Interrex, they got to go find this artifact that was stolen, because apparently is some chaos-infused artifact. And they're going to head to the moon of Davin. And that's where things go down and get real different. And Loken's going to have some hard choices to make. That was book 1 of the initial Horus Heresy trilogy. Next time I review a Warhammer book, we're just going to keep moving it forward in the Horus Heresy timeline. So the next book in this series I'll review will be False Gods. And I'm going to keep doing it from the perspective of Loken. There are so many characters. There are so many characters in these books. I can't get to them all without my videos being 7 hours long. There are some really good theorists out there and historians on the Warhammer universe. You want a 2-hour video, go watch theirs. I'm going to try to keep my book reviews to a reasonable time. But I really enjoy this one. If you liked Eisenhorn, you're going to love the Horus Heresy series. The books in the middle get a little boring. That's why we have audiobooks. You don't have to read them. You can listen to them. But I hope you will go on the journey through the Horus Heresy with me. It's highly it's highly enjoyable. And, you know, as I always say, it's escapism. There's nothing wrong with a little escapism, especially these days. You know, do something that makes your brain happy. So I'm new at this. Don't have an outro yet. But I do hope that you will like, comment, and subscribe, and we can be nerdy about Warhammer down in the comments.